it's never too late.
Yeah, and it speaks to the inertia of the longer that you put off doing something that is calling you, the harder it is to get started on it. The cliche of you don't want to end up being on your deathbed and having any regrets about things that you didn't do, it just comes down to you being able to really be honest with yourself about what you want to achieve, to just try your best to act on those things, no matter how small or no matter how big they might feel, to at least give it a shot, to try it, because you really never know. And I keep saying this to you about various things. When you're like, oh, so-and-so was here the other day, and then I was telling them about Glory Bar, and all of a sudden they mentioned this. People don't know to be able to help you unless you're communicating what you want to achieve. Unless you're saying, I'm interested in this. So, for example, again, here's another story I'll tell you. I need something for my fitness goals. I need something in my calendar. I need something that I'm aiming towards. Otherwise, things start to return back to some sort of a normal for me. Tom sent me, and this is the first time since 2 weeks ago when I did the shoot. I filled in my online form with my personal trainer last week, and I hadn't done it for 2 weeks. I haven't weighed myself in 2 weeks. I haven't sent any pictures. And he's like, the post-shoot stuff is just as important as leading into it. And obviously, there it gets to the shoot, and and then it's like, all right, well, yeah. And I didn't want to get on the scales. I didn't want to measure myself because I knew that I was like, I'll just do it next week because I had a couple of chocolate bars last night, or I went and had a Fogo, or et cetera, et cetera. I finally filled the form in yesterday. Tom sends me a video this morning, and he's like, you need something to aim for. He says, I can tell that you've lost the thing that you're looking out for. He says, I can't tell you what you want, though. You got to tell me what you want to achieve. Like, what's next for you? Set another goal then. And maybe that's a case of like, oh, I've achieved this thing now. Cool, I've proven that. And he says, maybe you can go harder in that direction. He says, but also maybe you want to work on muscle mass. That's something, but we have to still do that in a kind of defined way. It's lean muscle mass. It's not just go eat wherever you want now. Or he's like, or there's something else. What's that? It's up for you to define it. He says, otherwise it's like me trying to tell you to have a certain type of a mood. It's not going to work. So it's up to me, and it's up to the person that you're referring to, and it's up to everybody to decide what that thing is that they're holding themselves back from doing that is their potential. No one else defines what our potential is. We do.
Yeah, I think before it even comes to the domain of goal setting, because when you go to the domain of goal setting, you have already transcended that fear of even trying it out. You're already closer to acting those things out that you want to act out. I think for some people, especially at that age, they don't even get to that point where it comes to goal setting because they're still battling out within themselves that voice of intuition and rationale. And the rationale is always going to find the excuses to violate the intuition. With age, actually what happens with your personality trait openness is your trait openness, which is a direct correlate for creativity and risk-seeking. It goes down with age. So the closer you get to death, the less risk-seeking you become because you're going to be less open. And the reason is biologically because you're approaching the point of no return and you found a certain level of steady state, so you rather live from experience than tapping into the realm of exploration. So biologically speaking, it gets more difficult to be explorative the older you get. For that guy who was saying, you just live your safe life at that age. You don't need to go out at that point. You don't need to explore. That person is a very pragmatic person. It's like, roll up your sleeves, don't think about these things too much. So it comes down to how much do you feel like you need to be doing that? Because my response to that was, only you can really respond to that. How hard is that urge for you to tap into that potential? And how much do you want that? If that voice within you is so loud that you can't help but hear it, then all you're doing all the time, if you don't listen to it, is you're neutralizing it. You're masquerading it with a different noise. So in that case, I would absolutely sit there, listen to it, and then from there find a way to approach whatever it is your intuition is calling you for. And that doesn't mean you have to all of a sudden give up everything you have and freaking jump in the cold water and just do it at age 65 or 66. But it could mean something as simple as, what's a small thing that is not super risky, but is new and explorative, and break that potential that I want to tap into, whatever that may be, into a small piece and build that second leg to stand on. Like, use my mind, have a certain level of safety. Don't completely abandon that. But at the same time, also tap into that potential that comes from the voice of intuition, that voice of feeling. But if you don't have that, if that's not strong enough, then you can figure it out for yourself and say, you know what? No, I'm good. I don't need to do this. I don't want to take that risk. You have to be honest with yourself. How do you feel? And I would say more often than not, though, the people that say, yeah, I don't really have that, it's either that they have really tapped into their potential and listened to their intuition and listened to their spirit at a younger age and really went that path to the point where they're like, oh, I've done everything I wanted to do. Or they just found a way to negotiate themselves out of it.
It's the second one, I think, most of the time.
More often than not.
I was just going to ask you, I wanted you to actually give an example of something that somebody could do that was a very easy stepping stone to begin tapping into whatever their potential might be. Like a generic thing. But like, it made me think of somebody that I was out for coffee with yesterday who was saying to me, oh, you know, I've always wished that I would do some journalism. Like in her mind, she wished that she could be a journalist, and she could still be, but she's convinced herself that that time has passed, and that if that would have been the way that she'd have taken things, that she would be that by now. So she's kind of boxed that off as some kind of dream that just won't happen anymore, but she still wishes that it would be.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, you know, journalism doesn't have to be seen as like the end goal. What about if you just shared 3 tidbits of things that you learned from each trip that you go on? Like, it could be as simple as that.
Yes.
It could be just you write in a journal each time you travel, and then when you get back home, you go through that and you pick out 3 bits and then you post that. And it could start on Instagram, it could start on X, Absolutely. It doesn't matter. But then it's just the consistency of turning up. Once again, just like the gym, you go 4 times a week. So you upload 4 times a week, 3 little bits that you've learned from each travel that you feel like could help other people that travel a lot. Simple as that.
That's so true. I think one thing that people that think that I could have been, but now it's too late, don't realize is it's not actually about that end goal, in this case of becoming a journalist. It's about the feeling that comes with being a journalist and participating in those day-to-day activities brings. So when that person starts writing a 1-pager, a travel blog, and starts uploading that, they're already borrowing the feeling that they had associated with the fulfillment of being a professional journalist. And what they will realize is it's less about the expectation of being a journalist, but the identification with the tasks and the feelings that occupation in itself brings with it. And funny enough, once you do that and the eye is less on the prize, and you actually enjoy doing it, you enjoy writing these 1-pagers and uploading it, you're then automatically on a path with a higher probability to end up being that ultimate journalist. Now, whether that happens or not, you're still going to be able to accomplish, to a certain extent, that feeling that is associated with being a journalist. And what does that mean? That means you have now tapped into that potential, at least to some extent, and absolutely, definitely more than you had done before, because you've started it.
So why do we find it so hard to begin the things that we know that we should be doing, or not even should be doing, that we want to do, that our soul is calling us to? Why is it so difficult to begin those things? Why do we fixate so much on the end of the when it gets completed rather than the let's just start it? Why are we so fearful of that?
Because several reasons. First of all, we look at it through human eyes. Whenever we look at it through human eyes, we look at it to a certain level through ego, through the 5 physical senses, through the temporary version of self. Now, the temporary version of self always has a finite timeline. So we look at life in a linear fashion. And so when you look at it from a linear fashion, you're looking at life from moving from incomplete to complete, which is an illusion. Because think about everything you've done in the past. You thought, oh, if I do this, then I'll be this, then I'll feel this. Then it's complete. It's never complete because you'll always chase the next thing. So that linear fashion of life from incompleteness to completeness is the illusion in itself. Because at every moment, life is complete. So when you understand that you have a higher version of self, an eternal version of self that just moves in a perpetual state of completeness and perfection, every moment in itself is already perfect. But in order for you to do that, you need to start doing the things, and then you'll realize what you're actually chasing is the feeling. And the feeling is right there, right now, accessible to you. That job with the newspaper to be the professional journalist is not directly accessible to you right now. The feeling that it brings with it is accessible to you. Why? Because the feeling is created within. So what can you do today that allows you to evoke that feeling? And if you just break down that meta goal into the next approachable goal, you will very quickly realize you will if that's something that comes from the soul. I want to be a journalist. I want to be a travel blogger. I want to be a podcaster. Look at us, for example.
I want to win the Premiership, dude.
Dude, you're too old for that. Sorry to tell you that. You're too old for that one, man. No Abraham is going to save you there, man. Yeah. Fourthly.
All right, let's stick with podcasts. It's all good, bro.
Fourthly.
Over 40s league. All right, no worries.
And so that's the first thing. The second thing is every time we operate from the ego, again, from the illusion of linearity, we operate from fear. Because we're moving from incompleteness to completeness, we believe that there is a certain level of security we need in order to get to that end point. And so fear is always going to be part of that. So you're not going to start journalism because, what if I'm being judged? What if it doesn't work out?
And also feeling that, what have I got to say that anyone's going to be interested in? That was kind of the main concern.
Yeah. So that's some fear of judgment, and that's some fear of essentially
making yourself small, isn't it?
Feeling like you're less than. Yeah. If I tell you, bro, your freaking travel blog is extremely boring, it's bullshit. So if you have that fear, it's like, people are going to judge me. So you're actually afraid of now feeling less than you thought you were before.
You're afraid of being your own personality, almost.
Or at least a demoted version of the story you told yourself about yourself.
Right.
And that's to the extent that you haven't actually gone through these processes before. Because the moment you go through these processes and you put yourself up for judgment, by the way, I think that's the best thing everyone can do, to break through a lot of personality barriers they don't even think they have. Doing something that they're afraid of being judged for, positive thing. Don't go run around naked. I mean, I guess you could. Don't go around beating people, but something productive that you always wanted to do that puts you up for judgment. And let yourself be judged. That's the best thing you can do. Why? Because until then, you're imprisoning yourself to the expectation of other people and how other people perceive you. The moment you do that and you're actually being judged, you're going to be desensitized towards other people's feedback.
All right, so how do we put ourselves up for being judged then?
Find something that speaks to your soul, something that you always wanted to do, but that if you're honest with yourself, you didn't do because there was a certain fear of judgment involved in that. Everyone needs to extrapolate that to their own situation. So for me, that was speaking on camera, for example. That was one of them. The other one was acting in front of a camera and screaming into the camera. Those were things I was very much afraid of. And so finding an outlet that allows you to do the thing that you're afraid of being judged for is going to allow you to process that. And if you can't do the big thing you're afraid of right off the get-go because you're too afraid of it, find the smallest conquerable piece that you can do today and let yourself be judged for that. And you'll realize, I realize one out of two things. The first thing is, man, most people are not that interested in you. This whole idea that the world is going to judge me, dude, everyone is freaking preoccupied with themselves. We have this illusion in our head that everyone is going to look at us and the whole world is going to
the
be
whole
like,
audience.
dude, did you see Mark? He's so stupid, man. What did he do?
Cares.
No one gives a shit. And so that's the first one. The second one is you get a lot of positive feedback too. So what we have when we anticipate that is the negative voice. It's the voice of fear. That's coming from the ego, because the ego is only preoccupied with survival or death. So every time you venture out into the realm of exploration, it sees the chance or a higher probability for you to die. So that negative voice of the person judging you for being a journalist, that's your ego essentially resembling death. Now, when you actually do that, you realize even if you get some negative feedback, you also get a lot of positive feedback. So not only is that going to be balanced out to a large degree, the negative feedback that you get, I think it's great when you get it. I was happy when I got it for the first time. And I was telling Alex that in itself is exposure therapy to negative feedback. So what do we know from exposure therapy in psychology? The more you expose yourself to something you're afraid of, the more courageous you become. So it's a win-win.
There's a phrase in marketing to do with this. It's like all publicity is good publicity. So no matter what happens, it's good feedback for you to be able to apply something to an area of your life. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, doesn't matter. It's still something that you can either, okay, good, I can improve on that. Okay, good, I'm going to learn from that. Okay, good, I'm going to not do that again. It's only when we start taking it to heart too much that it affects us and makes us either feel downtrodden or uplifted.
Yes. And we take it more to heart the more we identify ourselves based on other people's opinions. The more we're actually confident and self-trusting, and the more we are deriving our sense of self from our own ability to conquer our fears, the less we're going to identify ourselves based on externalities, be it things or people.
Yes, because confidence should not be coming and cannot come from external approval. It has to come from your proficiency and conviction to do something by virtue of the fact that you've done it so many times, that you've practiced it, that you've become exceptional at it, that you feel and know and act from that place. So Michael Jordan James Haskell, an English rugby player, would train more than everybody else. So he might not have been the most technically talented, but he knew that he had the confidence to outwork anyone else.
Yes.
And so when he was on the field, he did that.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And even if you look at the etymology of confidence, it's confidere. Con is with, and fidere comes from, again, fides, F-I-D-E-S, which means to trust. So it's with trust. It's what type of trust? Well, how about self-trust? That's the first thing that you start with, right? Again, what's self-trust? Self-trust is doing the things that you know you should be doing and avoiding the things you know you shouldn't be doing. So confidence is actually doing the things that you know you should be doing independent of your fears. Meaning you are choosing courage over fear in order to do the things you know you should be doing. What are the things you know you should be doing? You sit with your intuition long enough, you know what it is that you should be doing. And then you don't allow fear, which comes from the ego, because it is there for you to survive, to dictate how you behave and whether you do it or not. But you choose the courage. Again, courage is actually with the heart. Cœur, French, heart. So you're choosing the heart, the feeling, over the ego rationalizing itself out of it. And then you'll do the things you know you should be doing, and you'll be more likely to avoid the things that you know you shouldn't be doing. As a result of that, you will have confidence. So you're going to walk with self-trust. And the more you walk with self-trust, this entire process is independent of externalities. It's entirely a conversation between you and God.
So when you have mini fears, I'm saying mini fears because there's obviously different sized fears that come up throughout your day. How do you overcome them? Or at least how do you not even overcome them? You don't have to describe that to me. I'm looking at practical ways that you can realize the fearful side of your self chat coming out of the woodwork to be like, no, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you combat that?
So what I do now is I immediately abstract from that voice and I just observe it. I just
You let it play out.
Let it play out. I absolutely let it play out. And I let it play out knowing that this is my temporary version of self-speaking. It's my fleshly version of self-speaking. And because I know what the fleshly version of self is interested in and how it operates, because we talked about that so much and because I'm interested in that stuff and I read about that stuff from a scientific level and also from a spiritual level through the Bible, through esoterics, I now know what that voice is. And I understand that that voice is not me. And so because I can frame that situation like that, I immediately am severing myself from that voice. So immediately the fear is reduced just by doing that. Just by doing that, the fear is reduced because you don't identify with that voice anymore. And then the second thing is, I know that that voice is something I should be listening to because that fear in itself is my gateway to heaven. Mm. If I understand where that fear comes from and why I should be overcoming that, I will be leveling up.
This is making me think about a couple of things. I want to know from a scientific perspective, because we always touch on spiritual stuff, but I know that there are people that are watching this that are not spiritual at all whatsoever. How do they make sense of that in a scientific perspective? How do they make sense of, yeah, it's all well and good to be able to read something, or like there's another word that comes to mind, ochialism.
What does that mean?
To understand that you have a very, very limited perspective of things from your point of view. So you might have a feeling of ochialism when you look out at the Milky Way, when you look out into space, when you look up at the moon. Mm-hmm. So that's one way to quickly snap yourself out of things if you're in your head too much. You know, go. I mean, if you live by the sea, go look at the sea, and then you very quickly be able to be like, oh, okay, it's all good, you know. It's a big wide world out there. I was thinking too much about this, you know, this small thing and worried about tomorrow and yet last week. Certainly, if you're on your phone or at a computer or within a building, go outside and just take some breaths. But like more even scientific than that, more practical than that, what is something that someone could do? How can we convince people that are like, this is all bollocks, all this spiritual stuff?
First of all, there is no quick fix for you to deal with that in the long run. It's a process of building your own self-confidence and self-trust up based on everything we spoke about. Something that you can start doing immediately when something like that happens is doing something physical. And the reason is when you're afraid of something and it's a mental fear, it's, I don't know if my boss is going to be happy with me. I don't know how my relationship is going to go. What's going to happen to my business? So all of those are mental fears, right? Because the mind and the body are a unity, they're connected. You can train your body to deal with that fear response in a better manner. And so what I tend to do a lot is doing something that's physically challenging relative to my own baseline. So I may be fitter than a lot of people. So for me, that is maybe doing an hour of HIIT training until my lungs coming out. For someone that might just be 10 minutes of jogging. For someone that might be 10 minutes of walking, depending on your own benchmark. That's the first thing. Second thing that I love to do is fixing myself through through doing hard things in diet, fasting for a few days, jumping in ice baths. So the reason that you can do all of that is every time you're doing something like that, there is a stress, there's a stressor, there's a fear. Can I get into the cold water? I'm so hungry. Am I going to survive?
So these are the micro fears that you overcome then.
Exactly. So by overcoming this physically, neurochemically speaking, it's the same process as overcoming a mental fear. It's no different. So when you build that self-trust through the physical, you now build a muscle that is applying across domains, and it's also going to apply to all the things you're facing mentally because they're interconnected. That's the beauty of the body and the mind. You have direct control over the body. You're afraid of your relationship, go jump in cold water. Go run your lungs out. Go fast for an entire day. And essentially what you're doing when you're doing that physically is you're signaling to yourself that you're capable of more than you initially thought of. Every time you signal to yourself that you can do something you weren't sure you can do, you are building self-trust and self-confidence. And guess what? When you have a fear, why do you have that fear? I don't know if I can deal with that. I don't know if I can overcome that. Now you've built a muscle that's going to apply here. Oh, hold on. I've proven to myself, to the physical, that I can overcome that. You're way more likely to be able to deal with that in a positive manner now and expose yourself to it or deal with it, whatever that is. It comes down to the type of fear, right? There's some fears that you need to overcome because you know it's blocking you from progressing. But there's also certain fears that are valid. When there's a lion in there, you don't want to run towards the lion and approach the lion, right? So there's different fear responses. But more often than not, the fears that we are talking about are the mental fears that keeps people stuck and doesn't allow them to tap into their potential. And those are the ones you want to overcome. And a very easy framework for me was to categorize if it's a fear that I should be tackling is it tied towards me doing something that I think will allow me to grow? So for example, if it's something that I want to do this podcast, do I have this intuitive feeling like there is some calling involved in here? Is this something that I'm naturally interested and drawn towards? Yes. Am I afraid of it? Is the fear of public speaking holding me back from it? Yes. If I did this and overcame this, would this create a universal good that transcends me as an individual? Yes, I think some people will benefit from this conversation. So now I know that I need to be tackling that fear. So now I come up with a strategy on how to conquer that. And then on the other hand, there are certain fears that you don't need to tackle. You have to figure that out for yourself. But if it's preventing you from growing, find a framework that allows you to overcome it. Very often, going through physical hardship will allow you to overcome that. And then on a practical manner, break that meta fear down, that big fear down, into something conquerable. I really want to start my business. I'm unhappy in my job, but I need the job, man. I need the money. I have a family. Fair enough. Don't give that job up and start searching for a job. How about you update your resume so that it is aligned with where you want to go? Can you do that? Yeah, I think I can do that. Okay, do that. Keep your job, create your resume. Can you now maybe search and optimize your resume over the next week? Yeah, I can do that too. Okay. Can you now go on LinkedIn or Indeed and search for jobs? Don't have to apply. Just do it. That's exposure therapy. Exposure therapy can be applied everywhere. And then ultimately, when you do that, that at least increases your probability of getting to where you want to go.
Yeah. Tackle lifting 5 kilograms before you try and do 10, and then, yeah, keep showing up each day. There's so much of this. There's literally so much of this on Instagram, social media, and all this kind of stuff these days. It definitely feels like we're in, or at least my algorithm is showing me this kind of stuff because maybe I'm talking about it, I'm interested in it. Self-help, motivation, development, growth, mindset kind of stuff. Lots of people talking about it. I was thinking to myself this morning, I also noticed that me posting about this kind of thing is to extend the level of accountability to myself and to others. So the more that I have these conversations, the more that I post these kind of things, the more that I then hold myself to that standard. And then if I keep pushing that a little bit, because social media is that, it's us presenting our best self, our best pictures, our best highlight clip reels. You know, it's all the best bits for the most part. Most people are not posting their sad, melancholy moments, but I feel like we should if we want to be really, really, really transparent. In the case of posting our best bits, it's also a place that you can put your goals and your aspirations as a way to kind of, 1, communicate them to others, 2, hold yourself to that standard, and 3, inspire others. Mm-hmm. Give it out so that other people can go, oh yeah, I could try that. I certainly know that I use my social media for that means. There's a little bit of like, yeah, look at that. Of course there is. Everyone wants to show their best self. But we have to kind of be careful that you balance out that side of yourself as well. I know that. Certainly I know that for myself, because you can get caught in that a little bit. It feels nice to get some likes on some stuff, but it can't be based on that. It has to be the process, not the end goal, like we've just been saying this whole episode, to be honest.
What specifically are you afraid of, and what do you do actively to overcome it?
Right now, I'm afraid of the big project that I'm undertaking. I'm afraid of it in so much as I want to make sure that it's the best it can possibly be.
What's the project?
An album.
Uh-huh.
So I know that I can get stuck sometimes in the preparation part of that and the trying to strategize it out, whereas what I really need to do is get in the sandpit and start playing.
Why are you so preoccupied with it being good? What exactly do you mean by that? The reception of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's levels to it. Like artistically, I want it to be representative of something that's beautiful and resonates with people. Technically, I want it to be something that my peers are like, wow, that's a really well-produced album. There are some incredible sounds in there. The design of the sounds is epic. And I want to work with incredible musicians. And I believe I can do all of those things, but juggling the different things together is where I can sometimes kind of box myself in on it feeling like I've got to juggle too many things at once. So that's where I can sometimes get a little bit stuck, but I also just need to own that.
Do you mind if we take this a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk to you about this. I was going to ask you.
I'm curious about this because I don't know this about you. So, you said you want it to be artistically sound. You want it to be well perceived by your peers, and you want for it to open up new avenues for you to work with other artists. I would say the fact that you want it to be musically sound is also somewhat tied to receiving positive feedback as a result of it being technically good. They're a little bit connected to a certain extent. Now, why is it important for you that your peers perceive it as positive? And why is it important to you that other artists, as a result of that, will be like, Mark, I want to work with you? What does that give you?
I want to build more stronger, deeper relationships with people in the music industry that I respect, either through their career trajectory, what they've built, or through the way that they see things and how they make music, so that I can learn from them and perhaps maybe even show them a bit of the way that I do stuff. That is where I get the most amount of joy in doing what I do. And it's also where I feel most fulfilled, when I'm with other people who feels like they are magicians almost in what they do. It is this state of awe that I was talking to you about yesterday. There's no fight, there's no flight. That part of my brain is deactivated. I'm just like, what are they doing? And my eyes just go wide, and I feel like I'm 5 years old again. I'm just staring at somebody putting cables into this and this into this, and then all of a sudden they are alchemizing a sound out of electricity, and it feels like some kind of Tesla type thing where all of a sudden sounds come from nowhere, and then it's like, what? And then they can turn this and change that, and what if we change the length of this, then it sounds like this, and I'm like, it's just magic to me. I don't know how to do all of those things, so seeing somebody do that captivates me beyond my wildest imagination. I'm better at doing certain things like structuring out the track, and I know the types of sounds that I like. And again, like if I gave you a piece of food that you'd never tried before, you're going to have a reaction to it. You're either going to go, like tasty. A glory bar, or you're going to take a bite of it, and you're going to have a reaction which is it's unusual to you, or you might get scrunch your face, etc., etc. With sound, you know when you hear something that you like it. Like when you send me a track, there's something that you haven't been able to put your finger on, and you wouldn't necessarily even be able to describe it, but you can't. And this is what's amazing about people who send you music. They don't know what it is about that, but they know that it connects with you.
Correct.
So they hear it, they go, oh, I've got to send this to so-and-so, and all of a sudden you're like, dude, what a tune. And then both of you are on a level.
Yeah.
Same with a type of food, and same with how I want to be able to produce my music the same way that I would produce a really, really good plate of food, pass it over and know that that is the tits.
Yeah.
And that they're going to take a bite and go, this is fucking incredible. I want to do that to people's ears.
Okay. So that to bring that back to you, I want to make this about you. So for you to work with those people and get recognition from your peers, you said the emotions you mentioned were joy. It will bring you joy, and it will bring you some sense of awe, some type of positive wondering or bewilderment.
Yeah, that plus I think the recognition from your peers is something that you could tie into, like, for example, you're a professor, so you want to achieve a good grade. So there's no real curriculum in music, but there is a level of, like, if you do these things right, like it can be technically, that's very well done. It might not be your taste of music, but you can just go, it's very well done though. And that is the level technically that I want to be able to represent through these things.
So is it fair then to say that to a certain extent your fear is based on feeling not a certain level of recognition, joy, and acknowledgement via the middleman of peers as well as other musicians and their feedback?
That was hard for me to take.
So
say it again.
Yeah. So in the beginning, you said you were afraid of this entire project.
Are you saying that I'm afraid of my peers' feedback?
I'm saying that ultimately, what you're trying to get at the very end, you're trying to get out of it a certain level of joy, acknowledgement, and recognition out of this project via your peers and other musicians. So I'm asking, is that fear that you're having right now that the album has to be like that, it needs to come out well, because you want to work with these people, but also because these people will bring you a certain level of recognition, peace, and acknowledgement, grade A. That's why you want to get grade A. So is your fear subconsciously tied towards getting a grade B or grade C through the middlemen of those emotions, which would be the peers and the other musicians and just the general public?
Yeah, I guess it is to a certain degree. I think going back to what we were saying earlier about putting in the hard work, I know that if I just work really hard on this album and produce and represent the music that I believe is awesome and work with the people that I think are wicked at what they do, best percussionist, best keyboard player that I know, sickest guitarist, best vocal producer, best engineer, that product is going to stand up for itself. And I don't place too much of my peers' approval on whether I feel that was a success or not. But I'd be lying to say that I wouldn't want them to be like, that's dope. Because of course I want to be within my industry. I want there to be some level of like kind of, it's a mutual respect thing, I guess. It's kind of me wanting to feel that I am able to produce at the level that in my head this is a thing as well, like when you're sat there making music, there's a sound that's going on in your head. Like I can hear parts of the track and sometimes I can't get it to sound like that from my computer or from the instruments. And I'm like, it's kind of close, but it's not quite there. Like, it's not what I can hear in my head.
I feel like that when I speak, like there's something inside of me and I want to express it and it's just hard to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because for speech, for example, it came so much after experience and emotion. So we're only able to communicate a tad bit of actually what's going on within us. And we try to be as accurate as possible when we convey that information.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the music, you have a sound inside of you and then you try to bring it out, but it doesn't exactly sound like that. So there's something lost in translation.
Yeah, absolutely lost in translation is a good way to put it. But I think to your point, it's actually very interesting. What I'm really trying to translate is an emotional feeling. I'm trying to translate a feeling that I've had of an experience or a way to feel. This song is sad. This song is euphoric. This song is happy. This song is longing. A lot of my songs have a feeling of longing about them. When I get to translate that the best, it's usually, this is connection to the muse, when I move out of the way, don't categorize too much, stop analyzing too much. This is every producer who's listening to this will understand this as well. We analyze too much because we're so in it, like we're shaping the sound, but we're too focused on this has got to be perfect and this kick drum and this clap. It's not that clap. It's got to be this clap. And again, on the other end of that, the listener doesn't care. They're not listening and going, oh, he's used the wrong clap. He should have used a room reverb instead of the other. No, they don't care. If the music is translated the right way, so usually that is in the least, that's in the minimal amount of instruments done. Like if you think about, here's an example, Coldplay. You just need Chris Martin singing and a piano and you'll have one of the best tracks in the world versus some overproduced thing with 125 different layers and sounds going off in different areas. You just need a geezer on a piano singing from his heart about something that means something to him. And it connects with people in China. It connects with people in Dominican Republic. It connects with people in Moldova. It doesn't matter.
That's so interesting because so essentially what you're saying is when you're too close to something, you lose sight of the bigger picture almost.
Absolutely.
And there is a bigger picture that is perceived by people that are not too close to the technicalities of the process. In fear research, they have found that the more you stare at something closely, the higher is your stress response. So one way to overcome a stress response is actually shifting from a narrow, short-sighted view to a long-range, broad-based view. So one very easy thing to do is when you look at the mountain and you go into landscape perspective, immediately they've measured that the stress response is going down. So there is an element that plays itself out both in what you were saying on a technical level, but also on a psychological level, that we're almost forgetting to see the forest because all we're seeing is that tree right in front of us, and that creates a stress response.
Meine Bruder, absolutely a nail on the head. And you reminded me of something I felt at church the other day because I was thinking, I'm a little bit stressed out. I suppose this is the anxiety thing that you've mentioned before as well, to be able to kind of change your aperture of your vision. So I closed my eyes, and he said something. We're all going to join each other in prayer. I closed my eyes, and instead of viewing the stage and where he was, I brought my vision. It was almost like with my eyes closed as well. This was what was key for me. I brought my field of vision inwards. So I closed my eyes, and I can do it now, even with my eyes closed. You can view from the wide, and then you can turn it in, and you can feel as if you're looking into yourself.
Yes.
That is a moment, and it is something that anyone can do, and you don't have to be praying to do it. It's a way for you to look within. That helped me so much, and I remember thinking to myself as I did it, because it was like a moment where everybody's together, and then it's all of a sudden like, we're going to pray, and I was like, okay, right, be there, be still, and then look within yourself, and then say these words to you, say them inside to you.
Yeah.
And I brought my vision into myself that kind of way, and I was like, oh, I need to tell Puya this on Tuesday.
That's exactly that, man.
But it's exactly that.
And now I'm curious again, like just as a thought experiment, if we extrapolate that fear that you have for this album coming out well and making sure the sounds are all perfect in order to get the good feedback from the peers and from the other musicians, in order to have more opportunities to work in the future with those people, in order to get that recognition, if we abstract all of those to a grander picture, wouldn't that also again tie in all of these things that you're seeking for through the release of your album? Wouldn't that actually just tie into survival in itself as well? A higher likelihood of survival through ranking hierarchically at a higher status as a result of being selected for by your peers and your other musicians to a certain extent. So is it safe to say that fear is always tied towards the ego, I guess is my question.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
And my next question would be, knowing that And also shifting perspective and realizing what you're seeking from the peers and from the other musicians is what you already are to other people that you might not even know.
Yeah.
So you're occupying that status that you're seeking through the release of the album. Would shifting that perspective to a certain extent release some of that fear? Because if that was so, then in this very moment you already have the thing that you're seeking for to the release of the album.
Yeah, I'm so nervous right now. I'm just fiddling with myself. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, because if I'm honest with myself, I've released an album's amount of material before. I just have never placed it all together and tried to make it one cohesive thing. So when I talk to people and I say, I'm making an album this year, it feels good to say that, first of all, because I'm committing to it, and then I'm double committing to it by telling other people to make sure that I actually get it done. The third thing is that making it I've only ever released singles before, so it feels easy. It's still difficult for me to even get to a point where I'm like, that's done, like you can have that now. But to put them all together and for them to all feel like one full thing is different. But it's all in my head. I know that.
Yeah.
So I kind of want, as you're talking as well, I'm thinking like, right, okay, so I need to set up, my computer's here, and then behind that I need to have a big poster to almost like the screensaver, you know, like a vision board type thing.
Yeah.
To keep my head in the wider scheme of things, like even if my computer screen is like, right, this track you're working on now, this is the first part of the journalism. You're going to write one thing. There's the big journey behind it. That's what you're aiming for. But don't worry about getting to that. You're going to get to that. But you got to start here.
Yeah.
That's going to help me.
Absolutely.
I have to stop thinking about the finish line. And
Well,
I have to know that the finish line is ahead and I'm running towards it. But I don't have to worry about all of the what time am I going to do it in, and is this going to happen, and so is so-and-so going to be at the finish line, and da-da-da-da. I've got to stop worrying about those elements because they're variable. The only thing that I need to worry about up front is taking the next available step and just upping my pace, really.
And I would also add to that, if the album is the greatest success and you get the greatest feedback and the big artists all want to work with you, I would make the case that you still haven't moved from incomplete to complete. From that point, then, you will set another vision that would still mean you're in a state of incompleteness, independent of the success of this album. So completeness or incompleteness to that extent then is a state of mind. I guess you could be doing everything you're doing right now from a place of peace. You could be acting out everything you're acting out right now for the production of the album without feeling that fear. And I would even make the case that the chance and the probability for the album to succeed will be higher when you're acting out all the things you're acting out from a place of peace rather than from a place of fear. It doesn't mean that you go to a state of peace and then stop doing the things that are necessary to release the album, but it's how do you feel in the moment of doing it. And why am I saying that? I'm saying that because that completeness of the album, if you operate from that place of fear, the next thing you're going to do again is going to evoke that same emotion, that same response within you again. So what you're doing is fear, I got to the goal, I can rest. Fear, next goal, I can rest. What if you could, peace, work towards it, goal accomplished, album released, peace. Because now you're buying the present moment, not the future. You're owning the present moment. Because every moment that you can do, that's how I feel about it. Every time I feel anxious, and it happens to me all the time too. It's like I'm feeling anxious for a possible future outcome, okay? If I can calm myself down right now, I already won. Why? If the outcome is positive in the future, I'll still be happy and joyful. If the outcome is negative in the future, at least I had the present moment in which I had calmed myself. it was a very weird thought experiment for me, because I remember Alex once calling me saying, I think I'm getting sick. She was at work. And I'm like, don't worry, you'll be fine. Don't even think about it. You have good immune system. You took your oregano oil capsules. You'll be good. So then I was sitting, I was like, okay, what if she actually gets sick in 3 days? That none of the stuff that I just said matters. And I'm like, what a wrong conclusion that is. Why is it wrong? I tell her now that she's going to feel good. She's going to tell herself that she's feeling good. So for the next 3 days, she's at peace because she thinks I'm not getting sick. 3 days from now, she's getting sick. So the outcome is she's getting sick. But the difference is the 3 days, she wasn't worried. She was at peace and got sick, versus she was worried all the time and she got sick. That's an entirely different outlook on life. It just means you're devaluing the present moment if you make it dependent on the outcome in 3 days. And when you devalue present moment, you devalue reality.
I have to capture the present moment and absolutely love it from a state of peace.
I think that's what we all wrestle with. I think that's really it. That's the question of mankind, if you want to say so.
Yeah.
Can you see the perfection in the present moment?
Yeah. You're right. It's accepting exactly where you're at. And I said this to someone yesterday. It's funny how we're so good at saying it to someone else and we're never good at saying it to ourselves. I had a really nice moment when I was talking to my friend and we were discussing all sorts of things, and she was like asking me questions about, what happens when we die. She's like, I think about this all the time. She is asking me these questions, and then I'm like telling her about the present moment, and I'm like, this is all that really matters, and the eternity is right now, because we're either, our brain's trying to make sense of things all the time as the prediction machine that it is, thinking about the past, thinking about the future, but right now is all we've got, and here we are. And then I was like, and this is what we've got. We were looking around, and it was like, it's a beautiful day. We're sat at Earth, Uncommons, outside, sun shining. I've got a Spanish latte in my hand. I mean, can you get much better?
It can't.
And as we're talking, little birds. It's like, I was like, hello, bluebird.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. The moment was superb. It was perfection. And I'm saying to her, you designed this moment. I mean, we co-designed it, let's say, because we were both there. We co-designed this moment. The fact that we're able to do this, there's perfection in that, because it's exactly what we want. Exactly. We designed it, co-designed it. Thank you.
Co-designed it. If we stop looking at it from human eyes and look at it from the eyes of the field, the infinite God, then actually what you're doing is you're moving from perfection to perfection to perfection to perfection to perfection.
So, on that note, when you're watching this back on your phone, or if someone's laying on their couch watching a moment, it's important for them to realize that they're also co-designing that.
Sure.
And if that does not assimilate with what they want to direct their life to be, it's up to them in that moment to put the phone down, get up and go and do something. Correct. Go do what is your untapped potential. Because if your potential is not laying on your couch watching an Instagram reel, then it is putting your phone down and getting up and going out and making love to your missus or making love to your mister or whatever it might be.
Yes, 100%. That's under your control.
Yeah.
Absolutely is, man.
Take control of those things.
Yep. And when you actually find peace in the present moment, whatever strategy you need to use for that, whatever outcome happens in the future, in that very moment, you can again find peace, independent of the next outcome. So to come back to that example of getting sick, you spoke to yourself, I'll be fine. You got sick. Now you're sick. Now you're like, it's okay. I'll be good in 2 days. I'll be good in 3 days. So really what you're doing is you're taking out the power of the circumstances of reality, because you're regulating your own emotional state through your inner monologue and outlook on reality. That's what mastering self is. So whatever outcome happens for you, it's fine, because that's not going to trigger a change in your internal state anymore. Only you can trigger that. And that's what valuing the present moment is. I am telling myself I don't allow myself to feel sad, depressed, and anxious, because 4 or 5 days from now, this might happen. And if you do that, you're enslaving yourself to the outcomes of the external world. So whether that's good, feel good. That's bad, you feel bad. So you want to be able to regulate that, right? And still do all the things that you need to be doing on a physical plane, but have a mental state of peace and operate from there. And whatever the outcome is, then you'll be fine. At least you preserved the present moment.
Mm. My brother, you've been meditating, haven't you?
Shorter than usual, but yes. Yeah, bro.
All
So
right.
what's the release date for the album? Is it set?
September the 1st. I haven't set a date, but yeah, I'm kind of like pitching for that.
Okay.
That seems like a good amount of time to make sure I can get everything in order.
Amazing. I'm very excited to hear it, man.
Yeah, we're going to do a special listening party for the Brooders
Let's do it,
and the Manishvesters.
man. The Schwesters, bro.
Go.
Cheers, Buddha. Thank you.
Cheers, brother.